that's if you have to allow a score, I prefer it happens that way, right? Like the worst case scenario is a team goes down and runs a 10-play drive and then punches it into the end zone. Because not only are you, tiring out your defense, you are not preventing points, and then, you're taking time off the clock away from your offense. At least if like that was the thing you could say is like, okay, the Saints gave the ball back to the Seahawks and then they immediately allow a 69-yard touchdown. At least that puts the Seahawks defense back on the field and, gives the Saints plenty of time to operate. That was the only positive you could pull out of what happened with that Kenneth Walker touchdown. Oh, the lights just went up.
They're telling you something.
Now it's real dark. But yeah, I think the big play, the number of big scoring plays the Saints have allowed this year is concerning. You don't want to be the team that, can't lock down in key moments because the opposing team can always go over the top, right? Or can always hit big. You have Laviska Shenault in week 2, right? In week 4, it was that Justin Jefferson bomb when you just needed to clamp and get the ball back to your offense in a tie game. Today, you went up 31-19 and bang, 40-yard touchdown to Tyler Lockett. Bang, 69-yard rushing touchdown to Kenneth Walker. Like that can't be the identity of your defense. And this is a team that has struggled in so many aspects of just being a consistent team. I thought they cleaned up the penalties today, and I think that if you wanted to pull a silver lining out of allowing 32 points and having to really push yourself to come out with this game, it was there was a lot fewer dumb penalties, right? There was some penalties will happen, but there weren't any that you're just like hitting yourself over the head for. There weren't a ton of boneheaded holding calls. There weren't a ton of silly defensive holding penalties. There was one against Paulson Adebo away from the play that was probably a boneheaded play, and he had a rough first quarter. He had a rough game, but I think that they did a good job of cleaning that up. They had the 2 turnovers. There's the Alvin Kamara turnover is inexcusable. The Andy Dalton interception, I think I put that slightly on Traquan. I don't think he fought back to the ball enough. Like you're going to throw interceptions when you throw into coverage. And in that situation, you're throwing it and you're hoping that Traquan can work back to the ball. And it's either it's incomplete or a catch. And if he can't get to it, he has to play defense. He did none of those things. He kind of just allowed himself to be covered. And then the guy worked over the top of him. I think it was Tariq Woolen and got that interception. It's tough to hate the throw. Like if you want to blame Andy Dalton, you blame him for trusting Traquan in that moment. Because Trey, he had a rough day. I think he missed 2 pretty easy third down conversions. They kind of just bounced off his hands. But he did have a big catch on that final drive as they were trying to, ice the game. So, you don't really have options at wide receiver right now, but you have to start wondering if Traquan's job is getting close because you've called up Keith Kirkwood today. They do very similar things. So yeah.
Yeah. And when you really hear about anything positive about Traquan, it's not for his receiving ability. It's for his run blocking ability, and obviously not exactly what you want from a wide receiver. Going back to those deep play issues, the big chunk plays, I wonder how much of it could be still communication issues in the secondary, because that was something I was worried about going into the year when you lost a guy like Malcolm Jenkins to retirement. It seemed like when he did come and join the New Orleans squad, because he went to Philadelphia after being drafted by the Saints. But when he came back, really seemed to solidify things on that back end, and you didn't have those busted coverages or huge chunk plays anymore. And I just wonder if it's still a case where, Tyrann Mathieu is still gaining that trust of everybody and being able to communicate things properly to the secondary.
Yeah, and I mean, you haven't had Marcus May for a majority of this, right? So,
yeah,
if you go back to 2020, when they were trying to incorporate Marcus Williams and Malcolm Jenkins as a tandem, You saw similar stuff in the first 5-6 games of that season, right? If you go back to that Chargers game, I think it was week 5. It was Monday Night Football. They're getting beat over the top by Mike Williams, right? This was something that happened. I think it was the Panthers in maybe it was week 5, week 6. Teddy Bridgewater comes in, and I think it was DJ Moore running alone down the middle of the field. So these types of breakdowns happen when you're dealing with a new back end. They've also been playing very aggressively. You haven't seen as much kind of shell defense with just a deep safety, 2 deep safeties. You haven't seen that much. You're trying to put pressure on the quarterback, and I think it's part of the reason you're giving up big plays. I would have liked to see them kind of concede 3 points at the end of the first half. Like if I was being critical of the play calling there, that's what I would say, because you can't allow 7 to try to prevent 3, and that's what they did. I think that they probably just didn't expect the Seahawks to be that aggressive. But when you have a track record of getting burned over the top, teams are going to get aggressive. So your play calling has to match that. Yeah. So I mean, I think there's stuff to work on.
Yeah, clearly this is far from a perfect game, an outing, but we like you said, an ugly win is better than a pretty loss any day. I'll take that JJP Jr. for sure. Now we just need to do some stringing together of these victories to get back into the mix of things, and get a win next week, and suddenly 3-3 isn't looking so bad in the NFC.
It is.